So I heard a story that on your first date with your husband, you told him you wanted to rule the world. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, it's accurate. Okay. And his response was what?
What if I get there first?
Oh, and you like, I love him. This is the guy for me. What was that, the rest of that date like?
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much in that moment, it solidified for me. And that's one of the best parts of my relationship with him.
Uh-huh.
And I think he would say the same, is that we've managed, and it's been really hard at times, but we've managed to neither one of us take a back seat professionally.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Our professional ambitions have equal weight. And again, that's really hard. It's actually very rare if you speak to CEOs, for example, that their spouse is also a CEO and going equally as hard, especially if that couple has kids. I think we're in a really good spot right now, but we've had to work very hard to arrive here.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to How She Does It, where we spend time with women who are making their mark on the world. And we literally ask them, how do they do it? I'm Karen Finerman, and I appreciate you taking a few moments out of your days to listen and learn from these amazing leaders. You may have seen me on Fast Money on CNBC. I'm a long-term Wall Street investor, a mom of four, and a big WNBA fan. Here, we have conversations about the intersection of women, power, and money. And today, we've got a great episode. For some folks, dining out has been elevated to its own sport, where scoring a reservation at the hot restaurant is its own reward. Some of my favorite memories, and yours too, I'm sure, have taken place while enjoying a delicious meal in an inviting space. In fact, my husband and I got engaged at a restaurant, and maybe many of you did too. Restaurants are a much bigger part of how we live today than when I grew up. There wasn't an app for them, but there sure are now. And our guest today is in the middle of it all. Debby Soo is the CEO of OpenTable. I'm sure many of you have the popular restaurant reservation app on your phone. According to the company, they bring 1.8 billion diners to restaurants each year. That's a lot of meals. Debby took over the company in 2020, which was an extremely challenging time for that industry. And in the past 5 years, she's brought new innovations to the app. She is a powerhouse. We spoke about how her immigrant parents inspired her, her unapologetic ambition, plus some really great tips for landing a hard-to-get reservation at those super popular restaurants. Hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Debby Soo, thank you so much for joining me today. We'll get your advice for how to land that hard-to-nab reservation, but I'd love to hear your story. You are the daughter of immigrant parents. How do you remember your childhood?
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, Karen. I am the daughter of immigrants. My parents immigrated to the US a year before I was born. And the immigrant experience is pretty key, I think, to who I became as an adult. I'm the only child. I was born in Daly City, which is slightly south of San Francisco. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with my grandparents, my parents, my uncle, and my aunt, and myself. My afternoons when I was a very young kid were spent with my grandmother, going to Chinatown, buying groceries, visiting the local mahjong hall, and then coming home and having my grandparents cook. My parents were always working. I remember my dad going to night school to learn English. And ultimately, they managed to start their own brick and mortar travel agency that specialized in bringing large groups of Taiwanese tourists to the States. So in my childhood, they were always working. My dad spent most of his time in Taiwan running that side of the business.
So
My
out of the country most of the
Yeah.
time.
I was actually I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And last week was a crazy week. My husband was out of town for work. We had various offsites, onsites. And so I'd leave at 8 a.m. in the morning. I wouldn't get back until 8 or 9. And on Friday, my 6-year-old had a little bit of a breakdown. I had to explain to him, I was like, that was every day of my childhood because Bonggong, my dad, was very rarely around. And it was me and my mom. My mom was always working. So I spent a lot of time at her office or at the public library next to her office. And I just watched them work their butts off. I got a glimpse into what it takes to achieve their version of the American dream, and they certainly did achieve it. And I think that was just ingrained in me how important hard work is and that tenacity and that grit. I saw it firsthand, and I think I've tried very much in my own career to exhibit that.
So, what did you think then that your sort of adulthood would be? What would be success for you?
I always remember thinking that I would never be able to surpass what my parents had built, especially right with the chips kind of stacked against them. My dad didn't go to college. He was orphaned essentially at a very young age. My grandparents were not happy when my mom brought dad home. What they were able to do here in the States was incredible. And they had managed to buy a nice house in an affluent area in the Bay Area, right? Like I just remember thinking, like, how could I ever do that in my adult life?
So, wait, let me back up for 1 second on the house. When you lived with everyone in that first apartment, where did you sleep?
I slept on the bed, wedged between them. I slept in their bed.
Does that explain the only child thing? All right, so they had a lot of hopes pinned on you, obviously, right? You're the only child. I know you went to private school. There's a great story I heard about your mom just being your advocate, even though she didn't know all the labyrinthine ways that one gets their child into private school and gets them on that track.
Yeah, I've spent my life navigating systems, right? Even for my parents, because their English wasn't great. To think about my mom back in the day doing that for me, I mean, I remember I was mortified in third or fourth grade when I was in public school. And it was a fine school, her going in and telling the teacher, hey, like, can you give more homework? Because Debbie doesn't spend very much time doing homework. And my mom found out when I was in fourth grade that there was a gifted and talented program at my public school. I was not in it. And, she went and spoke to the teacher. They said, yeah, she tested a few years ago. She's not talented or gifted. My mom insisted that I take the test again. And I apparently did get in. I did a summer camp at a private school in the Bay Area, a school called Nueva. It's for gifted and talented children all the way up through eighth grade at the time. And she heard about it through a friend. So she had me go get tested and I got in. And even when I got in, because then she had heard, wow, like that's no one gets into that school. So she called the school and asked if they made a mistake. Even without, having a lot of fluency in English or not knowing the public and private systems of school here in the US, she did an incredible job making sure that, I had all the resources and support that I could get. And so I will always be very grateful for her.
So it's kind of amazing. You end up at Stanford, which, opens all kinds of doors.
When I got into Stanford, it still remains to be one of the best days of my life.
Really?
Yeah, because, I went to private school. And so, and I went to really good private schools. I was never the smartest person. Like I was likely the middle of the pack in both the middle school and high school. Yeah. There were a lot of way more brilliant people who I was with. And so I worked really hard in high school. Like I woke up at 4:30 every morning. My high school is in San Francisco, so it was like a 35-minute drive. I got to the library at 6 when it opened, and I would just study. And so I never, coming up in high school, even at Stanford, like I never felt like I was very smart, but I made up for it because I was willing to work more or harder than others. So when I got into Stanford with, I'll be honest, a 1360 SAT, I mean, come on, like, no one gets into Stanford with those scores. I didn't come from like family money. Like I was very blessed, and hopefully the school saw something in me and let me in. But yeah, the day I got in still remains to be one of the best days. And yeah, it did open all sorts of doors. But yeah, I knew I wanted to go in business. I realized I already felt behind. A lot of my friends had done an internship before their first year at Stanford.
Really?
At like Morgan Stanley, private wealth management, because they knew they wanted to go into finance and banking. And I had no idea like what banking even was.
Right.
So when I got there, I realized, oh, wow, like this rat race keeps going and it's going to go for a really long time. And it took me a really long time at Stanford, I would say 3 to 4 years, until I really figured out, okay, it's going to be banking. Okay, if it's going to be banking, like how do I get one of those positions? I always say, you look at my resume now and it's shiny and bright. But like what you don't see is like behind each one of those bullet points, there's like a graveyard of failures, right? I think I must have interviewed with all the banks. I must have gone on 50 or 60 different interviews, and I was rejected from all of them. Rightfully so. I had no idea what an investment bank did. And the only reason I ended up, getting a full-time offer when I graduated from Stanford was my summer internship. It was the summer of SARS, and everyone pulled out. No one wanted to go to Hong Kong. And
Really?
I spoke Chinese. I can read and write and speak Chinese fluently. And when they asked me, Deutsche Bank asked me, would you be willing to go to Hong Kong? I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'm not, I'll go.
Good for you.
And once you kind of get your first step in, then it's like what you do with it. And by the time I graduated, I knew I wanted to be a CEO. Now, I didn't know what company, I didn't know how to get there. It was frankly a really obnoxious thing to say when you're 22. But I knew that that's what I wanted to be.
Why? What was it about just being in control, having control over your destiny? What is it, do you think?
Yeah. So now that I'm in my 40s, I can very clearly state what it is, right? That and people sometimes wince, I sometimes wince even when I say it. I work for the accumulation of wealth and power so that ultimately I can be free.
I get that 100%. And I had this finance professor. I went to Wharton. I was gung-ho business. And he said to me, why aren't there more women in finance? That's what we do here. And I said, I think a woman who majors in finance at Wharton is saying to the world, I want to make money. And for some reason, that's not a good message. We don't feel comfortable with that message. But what if we change it to, I want to be financially independent? It's far more palatable, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. I say it all the time. Like, I never want to be in a position where I'm relying on someone else for my livelihood. I bet on me.
So I've spoken to a lot of CEOs who get to where they are in a very sort of serendipitous path. So you go into banking.
Yep.
And then when do you realize, wow, this isn't the way to get to where I want to be?
I mean, pretty much the first week in banking, I was like, it's going to be a tough 2 years. I mean, in some ways, I was a really great analyst because clients liked me. I was savvy enough to anticipate needs, whether that be from senior bankers or our clients. I mean, but like just the modeling, I would be the analyst. I would be wishing a deal would die. I remember my first year, I turned in a sensitivity analysis to my associate. And he took one quick look and he's like, it's wrong. And I was like, how do you know so quickly? And he's like, it's all zeros. Like when I was at Deutsche Bank that summer for my internship, my first midpoint review, my associate said, she doesn't seem to understand how decimal points work. It was just hard. And it's not where my strength was, but I had to learn. And at Deutsche, even that summer I managed, there was like 10 of us, 4 of us got offers. I was one of them. Everyone was shocked, including me. But I could like communicate and I could read a room. I could figure out like what people wanted and what they were angling for. And it was a great training ground, for everything else that I would do later on in my career. And if I could do it again, I'd start in banking again. I still think back to those days like, oh, like I get it now. I knew like generally towards the end what I was doing, but I didn't understand why until much later when I was in business school and, now running a business.
Well, it's interesting. I heard you talk about growing up sometimes feeling like the outsider, and yet some of those skills that you talk about that you felt like you had, are those a result of being an outsider and needing to really try to understand what people are thinking or want from you?
Yeah, I think so. And it's also from watching my dad, right? Like he didn't go to college. We don't know if he finished high school. We don't ask. And so he lived his life, less so now that he's retired, but with like a huge chip on his shoulder. Like he's hyper vigilant, very paranoid, always thinks, like that he's less than, so he has to make up for it in some other way. And so I learned how to read the room from him. And certainly these days, when I adjust my behavior towards people in the room, there's a word, it's called code switching, right? And I'm quite adept at that. And even when I went to middle school or even in college, right? Like I felt like a total imposter, like Stanford must have made some sort of mistake. And so when I raised my hand to speak, It has to be a really amazing comment for me to feel like I should be speaking. And so, yeah, I think just all of that growing up trained me on how to fake it till you make it, how to speak the language of those in the room. I mean, even now, OpenTable is owned by Booking Holdings. We have a monthly meeting where all the CEOs and the group holding company meet. I'm the only woman. I'm the only person of color. And it took me maybe 3 years to get comfortable with that group, to truly like come out of my shell and to get it right. I would say that it's probably one of my strongest skill sets and one of the largest factors, I think, of how I ended up here.
How did you end up there? You decide, all right, banking's not for me.
I took a job at Google after banking. I was there for 2 years supporting maps. I got promoted twice when I was at Google, and I wanted to get to this level. And basically my manager's like, well, at that level, everyone has an MBA. You don't have an MBA. So I was like, well, guess I got to go do that. And so I ended up going to MIT Sloan for my MBA. And my first year at Sloan, it just felt like very irresponsible to be taking out loans to go to school. I realized that I really needed to find a part-time job. And I stumbled upon a local startup, Kayak. I reached out to the co-founders, and the next week I was interviewing. And the week after that, I had my little desk. My job was to drive free mobile app downloads for Kayak's newly minted travel app. And so by the time I was a second year at Sloan, I was already working full-time at Kayak and going into the office while still doing classes at MIT.
All right, so you're there, and then do you think, okay, I found it. This is what I want to do?
No, I mean, I was there, and then between my first and second year of business school, I really thought going into business school that I wanted to be in luxury retail, So I worked that summer while I was still working at Kayak, but I worked at Estee Lauder. And then I split my summer between Estee Lauder and LVMH. So
Really?
I did New York for 10 weeks, and then I did 6 or 7 weeks in Hong Kong for LVMH, all the while still working at Kayak. And I realized that I really love the pace of technology. At Lauder, you're planning a year and a half, 2 years out onto a launch, right? Like that just in the tech world, that seems inconceivable. And so when I graduated from business school, I did decide to stay at Kayak. But I realized then that I lucked out in stumbling across Kayak because the company's DNA was a really great fit with just how I'm wired, right? I'm direct. I want to move quickly. I want to make an impact. I don't like politics. And so Kayak was just, the company that Steve Hafner and Paul English had built was like that. And so I could just fully unleash and be myself. Whereas at Lauder, I had to be really buttoned up, and I had to be wearing mascara, and I had to, which was a real thing, and like you had to speak a certain way and at a certain tone. And I could have done it, but it takes energy.
It's wasted energy, you think?
Yeah, it was wasted energy for me because I have to always think of how I'm coming across. Whereas at Kayak, especially in those early years when we were still a startup, I could just be me. Focus my time more on driving impact for the business.
All right, so you get this incredible opportunity at a seemingly inopportune time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was probably 10 years into Kayak, and OpenTable was a sister company of Kayak's, and I always wanted to be a CEO. It wasn't just offered. Like, I think people think that promotions like that just happen, but it's a battlefield. Everyone knew I wanted to be a CEO, but the CEO position at OpenTable was not given to me. So I got impatient and tired of waiting. And so when a recruiter called to say, hey, you want to be a CEO of this other tech company outside of Booking Holdings, I went through the process and I got the offer. And then I called Steve Hafner, who's the CEO of Kayak and OpenTable at the time. And I said, hey, I'm resigning. He's like, why would you resign? I was like, well, you've known that I want to be a CEO. And I have an offer here. He's like, well, don't go do that. Just come be the CEO of OpenTable. I was like, well, I've been asking for that for 3 years. He's like, no, it's fine. It's yours. So we negotiated. And that's how I became the CEO of OpenTable. I took the reins of the company in August of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. A vaccine had not come out yet. Restaurants were largely closed outside of Florida and Texas. I was not able to meet my teams. I was working remotely from my basement in New Hampshire, just trying to learn as much as I could and develop a view of what was going on at OpenTable and what the industry, the hospitality industry at large, needed us to be. And there were a couple things that were very clear to me pretty soon after I started.
Which were what?
OpenTable was the largest reservations platform. We were also the oldest. We were the industry pioneer for online restaurant reservations, but we weren't the best anymore.
What does that mean, you weren't the best?
So it could mean a lot of things, but let's just talk about the install base. So we have the most number of restaurants on OpenTable versus any other competitor, but we had lost a lot of the best restaurants in big cities like New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami. And even during COVID, when we had waived our fees, right, to restaurants, so restaurants didn't have to pay us, we had churn. So restaurants were churning. Why are they churning if they're not even paying for it? Oh, well, it's because in order to get the free, we're making them sign a 2-year contract with us. I was like, well, why the heck would we do that? Like restaurateurs, you remember back then, you can't even see beyond next week, right? Like, why would we make them commit to 2 years when this is going on right now? And any goodwill you would be getting is like, right, it pissed restaurants off. Like, how tone deaf is OpenTable, right? We had a pricing problem at OpenTable. We're expensive. At OpenTable, we charge restaurants historically monthly SaaS fee to use the software, but we also charge a variable cover fee. So if Karen, you made a reservation for 4 on OpenTable, historically that restaurant would pay us $4, $1 per cover. And so when a restaurant's looking at us versus a competitor that's a flat fee, right? If the other product kind of gets it done, right, we were losing because of price. And the reason I was told that we couldn't adjust our pricing was because we had to make our P&L, right? Because we're part of a broader group. So pricing was an issue that I changed right away. Product was a second issue.
When you say product, what do you mean? What was it about your product?
We have 2 customer sets. One is the restaurant. They're using our software to run their front of house, right? Getting butts in seats, the flow of their layout, taking prepayment, like all the things that a restaurateur needs to run their front of house. That's the software we provide. That product was quite stagnant and was behind. Like the functionality that our restaurants needed did not exist. So we've spent the last 5 years really making sure that the product is best in class. And we still have work to do. We're not all the way there yet, but it's in a great spot. But the mandate to the team was, I want to be able to look a restaurateur in the eye and say, unequivocally, OpenTable has the best software for you and your needs. That's on the restaurant side. On the diner side, and this still holds true, like the app looks like it was made in 1998 because it was. And I tell my teams that, right? It's outdated. It's easy to use, but the look and feel is not commensurate with the times. And so we're doing a lot of work right now. We will continue to, probably for the next year or two, revamping the consumer experience and making sure that we're showing up in the way that, restaurants need us to show up. We had a big pivot at the company because we're a 2-sided network. Everyone always thought that we had to allocate resources like equally, like on the restaurant side and on the diner side. And this is flywheel, more restaurants, more diners, right? And it's like the self-reinforcing thing. But the flywheel starts, in my opinion, with the restaurants. Restaurants are our customers in that they pay us. So we have to make sure that we have all the bookable restaurants that a diner is looking for, because diners are not loyal to platforms. They're loyal to restaurants. It is not my job as OpenTable to be cool. It is the restaurant's job to be cool. Our job is to showcase and amplify whatever the restaurant is trying to say so they can attract diners on our network. We recently revamped our company purpose, which is we serve restaurants. That's it. We are trying to do what's best for our restaurants, because if our restaurants thrive, we thrive as a business.
Tell us about the visa deal.
A few years ago, when, we sat around as an exec team, we're like, well, the product is actually really good now. And pricing, we've adjusted. But why aren't the restaurants, the elite restaurants, coming? And it was very clear, right, that one of our competitors is owned by a credit card company, American Express. For certain types or tiers of restaurants, American Express will pay the restaurant money to hold tables back for Platinum American Express members. And so when a restaurant's evaluating an OpenTable versus, let's say, a Resi, which is owned by Amex, right, and Amex is giving them money and not charging for the Resi product, then it makes it really hard as OpenTable to compete. My product could be amazing.
Right.
I mean, by the way, my product does have to be amazing, but we're missing kind of this key component. And so we realized a year and a half or 2 years ago as an exec team, we need to go get some credit card money because the economics here don't work. It is not a level playing field. So we ended up signing a deal with Visa. And the Visa Dining Collection is a group of restaurants that do hold back select inventory, primetime inventory for elite Visa card holders. And if you have, a Chase Sapphire Reserve card, for example, you get to see time slots during prime time that you might not see if you didn't have that card. And so, yeah, we've done a lot of deals like that. We just announced a deal with Uber. For us, knowing how hard it is to run a restaurant, I think our job is to serve as a conduit to all these partnerships, all these players that are willing and want to funnel more money and resources to restaurants. Like, let OpenTable be the conduit. I'll do that all day, every day, because I know how hard it is. And restaurants, I think now, understand the power that they have too, right? You have credit card companies investing money, trying to get access to some of these places.
To something that used to be free, reservations.
That's right.
It's no longer free.
We want to keep, like our business development partnerships team, they're very busy right now because I want to get more of these types of partnerships in place so we can funnel more resources back into the restaurant's pocket.
Okay, I promised we'd get to this. How does one actually grab that impossible to get reservation?
There are a lot of ways to nab that impossible reservation, and I'll go through some of them. First, you can have an elite credit card like a Chase Sapphire Reserve, for example, or any kind of infinite Visa card, where you enter in your credit card details into OpenTable, and we will show you slots that may not be available to the general public. Secondly, we have a section of OpenTable called Icons. Icons are the best of the best restaurants in any given city. What's special about Icons is we show you the next available slot for your party size. So you don't have to click in every day and search. We just let you know when it is. Third, if you have flexibility in terms of when you dine, whether that be the day of dining, right? Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or the time, if you're open to dining at 5 o'clock or dining at 9 o'clock, most of the time at most places, you will be able to find a reservation. And lastly, I don't know if I love talking about this one, but this is true. Chefs do check Instagram, right? Many chefs are very active on Instagram. If you DM chefs because they can't help themselves and they are all about hospitality, oftentimes if you say, hey, this is my wedding anniversary or whatever it is, many of them will go out of their way and try to make it work.
That is fantastic advice. So, all right, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to hear about your personality as a CEO. What comes easily to you? What doesn't?
What comes easily to me? So my natural inclination is I'm a problem solver, right? And I think that's why, throughout my career, I've progressed up quickly because for me, for let's say whoever my manager is, if you give something to me, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it better. Right. And if I can't, I'm going to escalate it to you so you can help clear out some obstacles so then I can keep going. But as a CEO, there are a lot of problems and a lot of obstacles, right? Everything that a company faces could land on my plate. Now the game is not, okay, I go in and fix it, which is always my first inclination. But it's how do we train the system and the people
right,
so that they can fix it? So it doesn't come to me. And that's been a very challenging lesson to learn, right? Because it's the thing that got me here.
Right.
It's not necessarily the thing that's going to keep me here. Right. And I've been in the role for 5 years and I love my job. But part of my job is also to make sure that those around me who report to me also have a chance right, at being
That'd be
CEO,
right.
right? And so succession planning and making sure that the people on my team are ready and the people on their teams are ready to step up too. I'm not serving my people if I just go in and fix it. I have to be patient, which I'm not good at doing. I have to let go of a little bit of control, which, as you know, I'm not very good at doing. So it takes a lot of like energy for me to bring my energy back.
To relax.
It is work for me. I think being quick to decide is a great thing as a CEO, but being quick to fix, to fix it yourself may not be a really great skill. So there's always that. And then I think now learning how to say no is also important. Early on at OpenTable, like the first 3 or 4 years, right? Like we wanted to get me out there and talk about the change in company strategy and vision and how we were different than, 10 years ago. And now, right, there's just a lot getting thrown at me. Can you go do this? Can you go do that? Can you speak at this? And I think it's important to have boundaries and say no. Like
Yeah.
even if I can, even like when it's clear that day, right? I can, but like for my own sanity and my health, yeah, there's some things that I have to be better about, like setting that boundary.
You are a finite resource as well. All right, I want to switch gears and talk about your husband, you as wife and mother. So I heard a story that on your first date with your husband, you told him you wanted to rule the world. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, it's accurate. Okay. And his response was what?
What if I get there first?
Oh, and you're like, I love him. This is the guy for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much in that moment, it solidified for me. And that's one of the best parts of my relationship with him. I think he would say the same, is that it's been really hard at times, but we've managed to neither one of us take a back seat professionally. Our professional ambitions have equal weight. And again, that's really hard. It's actually very rare if you speak to CEOs, for example, that their spouse is also a CEO and going equally as hard, especially if that couple has kids.
Yes.
I think we're in a really good spot right now, but we've had to work very hard to arrive here.
I remember when my kids were little, this idea of sometimes I couldn't be the number one parent. I had to abdicate that for a little while, and I found that very difficult to do. Is that something you experience? How do you
Yeah,
navigate that?
I still think I'm the number one parent in that.
Yes, all women do, but yes, go ahead.
Because I'm a mother and there's like a cognitive load factor of like, even if I'm not home, I travel quite a bit. When I'm not home, it's Dave. Like Dave's on. When Dave's not home, it's me. Right. But I'm still the one like signing up for summer camp, like making doctor's appointments, like making, all those things. But I would say we split the parenting task quite equally. We're both, as I said, very ambitious people, but when it comes to our kids, we both put them first. So the first order is always like, what do our kids need? Right. And then from that, it's okay, like fork wise, how do we juggle it? And it's been really incredible to have a partner who like gets my ambition and gets how important work to me is, like how big of a part of my identity what I do professionally is, in addition to being a mom and being a wife, which are also important. So yeah, like that moment, our first date, when he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want to take over the world or rule the world." And he said, "What if I get there first?" I mean, that's a great way to kind of summarize our relationship.
Well, that sounds like a very good first date as well. So you have two boys.
Yep,
right?
6 and 3.
Those are tiring ages, as I remember, but so cute and so, I mean, just delicious. But it's funny, they have a very different childhood than you did. Yeah, what do you think they're getting from their childhood? Your message was, you have to work hard. What do you think their message is from you?
I struggle with this a lot. I mean, I think I grew up very privileged, especially in the second half of my childhood. And my children certainly are very, very privileged. I think we still try to underscore the importance of hard work and grit. They see that both mom and dad work really hard I think what we're able to do for our kids that maybe neither my husband or I received when we were growing up was how the world works.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? How the
So
world
yeah,
works?
my older son is 6, and he did this thing a few weeks ago that I really didn't like. He was with a friend of his, and I was picking them up from math class or something. And like his friend was saying something kind of like teasing, like, oh, well, I have this, right? And then my son responded with, well, both my parents are CEOs. And then he did this motion with his arms. And I was standing behind them. I'm like, what? Like, I really didn't like, right? I didn't pull him out in front, but I was
Right.
mortified,
Uh-huh.
right? And so after we dropped his friend off, I parked the car on the side and I
Oh,
turned
that's
down.
serious.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, hey, we need to talk about that moment that just happened. And he's like, what? I was like, there's a lot of things that I didn't love about that. First of all, the fact that dad and I are CEOs, those are like our accomplishments. Those aren't your accomplishments. That's not for you to brag about. He's like, but you're the boss. He's like, I know you're the boss. I know you and dad are the boss, right? At your company. So I was like, yeah, I'm the boss at OpenTable, maybe, right? With the 1,200 people at OpenTable. But you know who else is my boss? He's like, who? I was like, the 65,000 restaurants that are our customers. Any one of them calls me Steven, I will get on a plane and go. So I have 65,000 bosses. So don't think mom is some all powerful, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I have a boss, Glenn, who's Booking Holdings CEO. And Glenn also has a boss who are our board of directors, right? Like that's why when mom's on a board call, you can never come in the room. And the board of directors also have bosses. And he's like, who? I'm like, investors,
The shareholders.
shareholders. He's like, well, who are the shareholders and investors, boss? And I was like, God, I mean, at this point, like, there's so many layers ahead of me. Do you understand? So, like, when you say like this, like, it's not accurate. Like, mom and dad both have hundreds of shareholders that get a say in what I do and what decisions I make. Like, it's not just us, right? There's always a system that you're like navigating within.
Uh-huh.
And so like that's what I wanted. Like, I mean, there were many things
When
in
you
there
said,
that I didn't like, but I was trying to like explain to him that like I might be the boss in my little kingdom here,
uh-huh.
but there's like it's so much broader and bigger than that. And like, you know, that's not appropriate to be bragging about something like that.
We are back for the lightning round. We have some fun questions for you. They're would you rather type questions. So all we ask is you give us the first answer. Don't think about it. Just answer. Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. Would you
I'm
rather
like sweating a little bit. Okay.
a 5 p.m. reservation or an 8 p.m.
5
reservation?
p.m.
Okay. Why? You got to get to
I
bed.
got kids. Yeah.
Okay. A quiet restaurant or a bar scene?
Bar scene.
Okay. Golden State Warriors or Valkyries?
I feel like I should say the Valkyries, but I love the Warriors. So
Okay,
have
I
to
get
say
it. I get it. Okay. Okay, would you rather work a restaurant shift in the front of house or back of house?
front of house.
Okay. Last app you downloaded and loved?
Last app I downloaded and loved. My Aura Ring,
Ah,
actually,
I
app.
hear you. Okay.
Yeah. I'm on that thing all the time now.
I know. Now I just know how little I sleep. It's really,
Yes, yes. I
yes.
used to think I slept really well, and apparently I did not sleep well. Yeah.
And now you're exhausted. You were fine before you had the Aura Ring. Yeah, I get it. Okay. Would you rather dress up or dress down?
Dress down.
Okay. Little League game or music recital?
Ooh. Little League game.
Okay. Why?
Because I get to be loud and like cheer.
Okay. Is there anything you've changed your mind about in the last year?
Yes. I used to think that I just wanted to go all the way to the top. I didn't know what that meant. But like every few years, you know, okay, I'm running OpenTable now. The next step is to run something bigger, or more revenue, more people, whatever. And my thinking on that has changed. You know, I talked about the rat race, right, when I first went to Stanford. And I feel okay, at least staying at my level in the rat race. And that's very different than a year ago.
That does sound very different from how you described every year before that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So,
think it's because my kids are young, and I try to volunteer as much as I can at their schools. And one of the moms, this particular mom, also has a very big job, but she's at the school all the time. And she says they're only going to be this age now, and then the moment passes. And yeah, you said at this age, the kids are delicious. They are. They bring me a lot of joy. And I can't tell what the difference would be, money or prestige wise, if I went and got even a bigger job. But I know what the cost would be. And for me, that cost benefit analysis doesn't make sense anymore. I'm working hard, but it works for all the other parts of my life that are also really important. And so I think this single-minded pursuit of professional ambition that has served me very well professionally is just not as big of a factor as I'm a mom, as I'm 44, I'm approaching 50. It's been an amazing ride, and I hope I get to be on it for a bit longer. But the ambition is not to go out and conquer the world, maybe, but to conquer my little section.
does that surprise you?
It does. It's like weird to even say, but I live a blessed life. Like I've worked hard for it. I'm older and I have young kids, and then I have also aging parents.
You're in that middle place.
I'm in that middle place, and I like each day, each year in this period, I think is really precious. And if I am not feeling, I always get the itch to like do the next thing, and I'm not feeling that itch. I'm really happy with where I am at. I'm able, again, to live the life that I want, and it's working most of the time. I mean, it's a balancing act. Yeah, like I'm good. Like, I'm really happy. And
Good. You sound surprised, but it's good. All right. I got one last pair of questions for you. Okay. What is the best investment you've ever made and the worst? And the term investment is very broad. It doesn't need to be a stock or an asset or anything like that. It could be a class or anything.
The best investment I've ever made was getting an executive coach.
Oh, okay.
Technically, it was Kayak's investment. But yeah, she's been incredible, and I didn't even know I needed it until I had it.
You still have her, it sounds like?
Yeah, I still have her. And it's an investment in both money and time. And
So she predates your husband?
She predate my husband.
Okay.
And the worst investment, I don't know if you call it an investment. My coach always says this, and I didn't get it when I first started working with her, but comparison is a weapon of scarcity. So I spent a lot of my career comparing, right? It's like a peer of mine who I went to school with got some headline or ran some company or got something. Like it would, I would keep me up. Like I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. Like that kind of neuroses. She has that. Why don't I have that? He got that. Why don't I have that? And even in those positions, yeah, I didn't make a headline then, but I still had a really great life. And when you're like constantly comparing outwards or comparing up, you kind of like don't recognize all the great things about your own life. And I just wish I'd spent less time and energy freaking out about stuff that I can't even control. So I would say I wish I'd just the outward comparison and always feeling like I came up short. It was just a lot of wasted time and effort. And I still think I would have pushed as hard as I did or as I do without that.
So it didn't motivate you. It just...
Yeah, it just sucked a lot of energy and angst, like unnecessary.
Okay. Debby, thank you so much for spending some of your very precious time with us. Really appreciate it. Wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.